The anniversary of the liberation of the Dachau Nazi concentration camp in Germany is being marked. It was on April the 29th in 1945 that the horrors at the camp were discovered, just a week before the end of the Second World War. The gate bearing the Nazi slogan, "Work sets you free," is a well-known feature at the site. This was the first concentration camp set up by the Nazis in 1933. Involved in the liberation were two divisions of the US 7th Army and the 20th Armored Division. Every year, scores of visitors come to Dachau to pay their respects to the tens of thousands of prisoners who died there.
Welcome to Be My Guest with me, Mary Honan, on Lear Media TV, supporting the Samaritans, Limerick and Tipperary, Clare's Wish Foundation in Limerick, and Deal Animal Rescue in West Limerick. And my wonderful guest today, you have no idea how many people have actually said they want to hear Joseph Alexander tell us his wonderful story. Joseph is almost 99 years old this year, and he's a survivor of the Holocaust, and more than that, he's actually a survivor of 12 camps during World War II, including Dachau and Auschwitz-Birkenau. Hello, Joseph.
Hello, Mary.
How are you? You're living in California now.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good.
How long are you living in California, Joseph?
Oh, how long? Oh, in California for about 61 years, I think. What is it, 70? 70 now, but since 1950, actually.
Wow, that's a long time to be living.
71 years.
And I interviewed David during last week, and he told me you're still driving and you got your driver's license again.
Yes.
You're some man. I mean, I can hardly drive. I can hardly drive my car, let alone somebody who's nearly 99 to be still driving. That's amazing. And you're not wearing glasses, I've noticed.
No, I don't.
That's scary. I mean, I'm here with glasses. I can't see more than an inch without them. But Joseph, tell me, I'm going to put on the screen share and that you sent of your PowerPoint, and tell me your story, Joseph, and we'll start with that picture. You were born?
In 1920, November 20, 1922. And this picture what you're showing here now, that was my family on the bottom. That was on top right was my father, my dad, and next to him was his brother, which he lived in England, and my grandparents. And this picture was taken in 1923 at the Polish border, because my uncle went away from Poland. He didn't want to go in the army, so he went to England, and then he couldn't come back to Poland. So they met at the border in 1923.
It's a beautiful photograph. I mean, it's a very important photograph. I think photographs are something that are so, if you lose all possessions, as long as you have your photographs, you have your memories, you have the physicality of that person being still there when you have.
But that's the only photograph I have from my family, except I have one from my sister, but that's all. I don't have any photographs of my family.
So you were born in Poland, am I right?
Yes. Yes.
And At what age were you when the war broke out? You would have been 1929. You were about 10 when the war, 10 to 14, when World War II broke out.
No, it was actually about 16.
16. Yeah, 22, 32, 39. Yeah, 39. My maths is terrible. And tell me about the experiences in Poland for you when you saw the Nazis arriving in Poland, because you would have understood, you would have had some level of understanding about what was happening.
Well, I was born in Poland, and and we lived in a small town, and my father was in business, and we had a very good life until 1939, when the Germans came into Poland. One half was annexed to the Third Reich, to Germany. The second part was Poland under German occupation.
Yeah.
We lived at the part where it was annexed to the Third Reich, to Germany.
Yeah.
So after a few weeks, they came to our town, and some people know maybe that in Europe, every town has a town square. And we lived in the town square, the second house from one corner of the square, and the third house was an uncle of mine. And they came in a few weeks after they came to Poland, to the town, and went after my uncle around the square and told all the Jews to get out, get 10 minutes to get out in the middle of the square.
Wow.
And they took them away. Some reason which I'll never know why they left the three houses where we were the second house. So a rumor started that they're gonna come back 3 days later and take the rest of us. So my dad said, I'm not gonna wait 10 minutes to give us 10 minutes to get out, because my dad had three sisters living about 25 kilometers before Warsaw, which is the second part of Poland where it was under German occupation. So he got out and got a big, deep wagon, horse-drawn wagon, and we packed up most of the stuff from the store, and he put a few pieces of household goods on top, because from our part to the other part, you had to go through a border. So like we're moving.
Yeah.
And my parents and one sister and a young brother, and they left with one wagon. And I remained with two older sisters, and we were loading up a second wagon. And in the meantime, Polish people were coming into town because they took out all the Jewish business, and they were to buy anything they can get. So I sold a bicycle and a boat of shirt material to one man. And on the way home, he had to pass the police station, so he got stopped. They thought maybe people were looting lead. So asked him, where did you get this? He said, I bought it, and show me a receipt. He said, I don't have a receipt. Then go bring the person who sold it to you. So he came back to me, and I said, I'll help. I have to go with you. Yeah, he said, you have to come with me. If not, they're gonna come here. And if they come here, we had a wagon loaded to go, ready to go. So I went with him, and he asked me, did you sell him this? I said, yes. Why didn't you give him a receipt? I said, we in Poland, we didn't give receipts. So he took the boat material, smacked the guy, and go. And let me go. And I went back, and my sisters were just waiting for me to come. And we took off with the second wagon. And we went to a little town named Bologna, about 25 kilometers before Warsaw. And we came there. And there, like I say, life was going on almost normal. people were still in business, and everything there was under occupation, but there's still almost normal. But everybody had to go to work. So being there for about 2 weeks, I went to my first camp. That was in 1939. I went to a camp where we worked during the week. On the weekend, you can go home. We were building a canal. Building a canal means that we stayed in the water up to the knee without boots. And that was already in October, November, and this is already a winter time in Europe.
Yeah.
So after working there a few weeks, I got the blood poisoning on my arms, on my legs.
Oh my God.
So I went home one weekend. I said, I'm not coming back. So Monday morning, the police came to look for me. And my dad said, no, he's not here. Especially there was one, the policeman was a friend of ours. So even if they saw, he said, no, he's not here. So they went away. So I stayed away from home for a few weeks, figured things would cool off. And that was the time where they were building a wall in Warsaw, where the Warsaw Ghetto was going to be. So after a short time, they came out with an order, any Jew who lives within 50, 60 kilometers in the surrounding area of Warsaw had to move into the Warsaw Ghetto.
Of course, the Warsaw Ghetto was notorious.
Yes.
There was an uprising in the ghetto where Jews tried to stand up to the Nazis, and they were slaughtered. For anyone who's listening to this and isn't aware of it, and you were in the Warsaw Ghetto at that time.
Yeah, no, I wasn't there. Not when after
Not
the
that
upper.
time,
No, I was in the. Anyway, I moved into the ghetto, and I lived in the ghetto over 4 months. And my parents, we found out that back home, since we left, nothing changed. So my parents decided, from an older sister, and I had a younger brother and we should go back home. So to get home, so I had to get out of the ghetto. So I paid off the guards at the gate to get out. And we got out and decided I take one street and my sister and brother take another street. And we walk through town and we meet on the outskirts of town. I walked for about 2 blocks, and I had a Polish teenager comes over and said, give me some money or I'm going to report you. So I figured I gave him some money and I got rid of him. And I kept walking. But he got on the streetcar, he rode the streetcar for a few blocks and comes over, give me some more money. So this time I gave him some more money and I changed the street and I lost him. So I walked to the outskirts of town and I met my sister and brother and we went home. So we came home, like I say, everything was the same since we left, nothing changed. But it lasted 3 days. I was free for 3 days. After being there 3 days, they came out an order, an older Jewish man from 16 to 60 report to the schoolhouse. So I had to report to the schoolhouse and off I went to the camps. And that's when I was going from camp to camp. So the first camp I went to, we were building a dam. Building a dam, we had a little electric cars and we had cut down some hills and to load the cars, and they took them to another place and they dumped it. And that was very hard work. We had to use a pick to loosen up the ground. Then the food you were getting was a piece of bread like this in the morning and a cup of coffee, and you went to work. You came back from work, you got a soup. It was either the spinach or the peels from the potatoes. From this food, you couldn't live to do, and especially do the kind of work we were doing. It's very hard work. So people were dying. They were taking people out every morning, dead people out of the camp. And we were near a city named Poznan. And there were a lot of camps in the city and around the city.
Yeah.
So the same thing happened at other camps. So they combined 2-3 camps into one.
Mm.
After a while, the same thing happened at this camp. This is why I kept moving. I was so many camps. That's when I kept moving, because I was okay. You know, the only way you could survive, because we worked with civilians. And if you're organized, can get just a little extra food, that's the only way you could survive. So I always managed to get something. So I kept moving from camp to camp. So the first one was the dam. Then I was working with building sewers. I was working in the city. Poznan was laying cobblestones in the street. Then I worked on the Air Force base. I was laying railroad tracks and all different kind of jobs. Until I was already in about 6 camps. A train arrived and we got on the train. The destination we were going takes maybe 5-6 hours at the most. But we were riding around for 3 days. No food, no water, no facilities, nothing. With a little, it wasn't a passenger train, no, a cattle car train, where they put 40-50 people into one boxcar with a little 2-feet window, and they closed the doors. And for 3 days, riding around like this. And the destination, I said we were going, was about 5 to 6 hours. Took us 3 days. We arrived in Auschwitz. Came to Auschwitz.
Sorry, Joseph, when you hear the word Auschwitz, we have, there's an actor on, well, he's a television personality in the UK, and his name is Stephen Fry, and he traced his ancestry with Who Do You Think You Are, the TV series, and several of his family were killed in Auschwitz. And he put it beautifully when he said that bloody name sends shivers up your spine when you actually hear the name Auschwitz. Because we have come to know of Auschwitz that, you generally think of people going in and never coming out again. And the horrible, the horrific experiences that those who did survive experienced. And it's just a name that instills horror by its very sound. Auschwitz. It always did for me. But you were in Majdanek as well, and you were in Auschwitz-Birkenau. It's amazing how many camps there were, and people tend to just think of the Dachau's and the Auschwitz-Birkenaus and the Treblinkas and the camps like that. But there were hundreds of camps dotted around the place, weren't there?
There were several thousand actually.
Yeah.
Around Europe.
Around Europe.
Yeah, but no one arrived in Auschwitz. No one just to come to Auschwitz was bad enough. But the only thing was, another thing, when I came to Auschwitz, later on, they had built the trains to go straight into the camp. But when I came, they didn't have that yet. So the train stopped, and there's a little town named Oswiecim in town, and it was my luck, actually, good. It was after midnight. When the train stopped, 30–40% of the people were already dead on the train. Whoever could walk, you had to walk out, and we were lined up in rows of 5. And I met Dr. Joseph Mengele. Dr. Mengele, you probably know, it was called the Doctor of Death. He selected people for human experiment or to the gas chamber. And he said, there's 6 kilometers to walk to the camp. So I'm going to select, he says, people to go to the left. And those people are going to be taken on trucks. Because he selected, he said, old people and sick people, young kids. And he went through and picked me out to go to the left. And when I came to the left, if I would come from home, I wouldn't know the difference. But when I came there to Auschwitz, I was already in 7 camps. And every time I had to go to work, I was always trying to get in to the biggest, strongest man.
Yeah.
Me, a little guy, I'm a little guy, so I could get away with a lot of things. And here he tells me to go to the left, and I look around, I say, old people, sick people, young kids. I said, this is not the kind of people I like to be with. But my luck was, it was after midnight. It would have been daytime. I don't think I could have done it. As Dr. Mengele, moved further down, I ran back to the other side. If I didn't run back to the other side, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. Because the people on the left, they were taken on trucks. We found out the next morning, they went straight to the gas chamber.
Joseph, before you went to Auschwitz, did you have any idea of Auschwitz and what was happening? Did you hear any rumors? And
Yes.
Had you knowledge at all of Joseph Mengele?
Yes. Yes, we did. Yes. So that's why I say, just knowing to go and going to Auschwitz, it was bad enough. So anyway, so I ran back to the other side. And like I said, the next morning you found out the people on the trucks on the left who take straight to the gas chamber. So I ran back, and then we walked to Auschwitz. And I walked to Auschwitz, went, I got a shower, and I came out of the shower, I got a tattoo. You can see there.
Can you explain the process?
The number is 142584.
142584.
And from that moment on, you had no name anymore. That was your name.
My friend Toba Abramczyk, her father, Meyer Abramczyk, was in several camps, 5 camps during World War II, and the last of it was Auschwitz. And when she saw your photograph on Facebook, when I shared it, she thought her dad's number was very close to yours. And she said, oh, can you find out, because they may have met each other in the camp. But she told me her dad's number. I'll send it to you. But it's a bit away from yours. But on the photograph, it looked like you both had been in there around the same time.
Yeah.
What was the process when you went in, they tattooed you?
Yeah, what?
When you went in, that was one of the first things they did was tattoo you.
Yeah, I came out of the shower, I got a tattoo, and then that was Auschwitz, and then we went to Birkenau. Then I walked to Birkenau, and I was in Birkenau for quite a while, and they kept taking people out, and at the time they weren't bringing any in, and I was trying to get out there, but nothing. They took us a few times. They want people, but we didn't trust them because I saw Mengele 2 more times in Birkenau. But it was daytime and I was far away from where he was. So I got through. But then they said they need tailors. My grandfather, my father, we were all tailors. So I report, and they come right in front of me. He said, we have enough. You go back. We don't need any more. We have enough already. So I'm still back. And that was the time, it was in 1943, when the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising was. So after the Ghetto Uprising, they said they need a big transport. They never told you where you're going, where, or anything where. So anyway, they need a big transport, but they didn't want to take any people from Poland, only from Hungary, Greece, Italy. But on the end, they were short about 300 people for the amount they wanted. So now we take some people from Poland. So I report, and same thing, get on the train and riding for 3 days again around with no food, nothing. And arrived, went back to the Warsaw. I was going back the second time to the Warsaw Ghetto. So I went back to the Warsaw Ghetto because we're supposed to clean up after the uprising. So we came back. There was no buildings left. All the buildings were burned out. Just the remaining walls was there. There was no camp. So it gave us some prefabs to put together some barracks. And so in the meantime, we had no facilities, nothing. And the shirt I was wearing, there was no shirt left. It was shreds, was eaten up from lice. Until we built the camp, we got Sunday, you went to get a shower and you got some fresh clothes. So the work we're supposed to do was taking down those remaining walls brick by brick and clean them up and put them up in stacks of 8 to 10 feet high. And we had a Polish people coming in with horse and wagon, and they were taking these bricks to the railroad station. They were sending them back to Germany. So in the meantime, after that time working for a while, and the typhus broke out. The typhus broke out. Anybody who went to the hospital, that was the end. Nobody ever came out. Typhus is when you get a high fever, high temperature. I got the high fever, but I was lucky. I had a couple. We called a couple like a foreman.
Yeah.
He was a German middle-aged man. He was also a prisoner.
Yeah.
So he was very good. So when I got that fever, I didn't go to the hospital, didn't want to go. So I was sitting behind those bricks, crossed over my arms like this for about 3 days until I got over the temperature. And then I went back to work.
And Joseph, it would have been freezing cold, safe to say as well. The temperatures, it would have been winter time. And it must have been so uncomfortable to have a fever and to have nobody to care for you, really.
That's right.
To not know what was going to happen to you because you were sick.
Yeah.
Kind of weakness at all.
Yeah. So I got over it, and then I went back to work. And we worked for a short time, and they had the Polish underground attacked our camp, trying to free us. So they were fighting all night. They were unsuccessful. So the next morning, they closed the camp. They took us out. And to get out of town, we had to jog because they were afraid that we're going to get attacked by the underground in the city. So we had to jog to get out of town. So we got out of town. We came to a big field where farmers graze their cows, and the ground is a very moist ground. So they put us up on that field, and whatever means you had, a knife, a spoon, or anything that you could dig up some mud. And we took my bottom of the shirt and squeezed the mud through to get a little water. So I got a little water. The next morning, we're on the road. Come to a town, was a river. So they let us go to the river to get some water. Two of our people just went a little further into the river. They thought maybe they won't escape, get out on the other side. They got shot, got killed in the river. So, and then, okay, we got some water and we walked. So the walk until the next day, we come to the next town, was the same river, but they said you can only 100 people at a time go to the river to get some water. So we got some water and we start walking. And that day, it was very heavy rain coming down. We were walking soaking wet until we arrived at the railroad station and stayed overnight. And the next morning, the same freight train arrived. And we got on the train, and this time we were 3.5 days on the train. We were going to Germany. Went to Germany, came Dachau.
Dachau, yeah.
Came to Dachau, and I was in Dachau for about 2 weeks doing nothing, because they were establishing 12 sub-camps within 50, 60 kilometers in the surrounding area of Dachau.
Yeah.
So for about 2 weeks doing nothing, then I was sent to camp called all but 12 camps, all by numbers. So I went to camp number 1, and I was working for a farmer. We were digging potatoes. That lasted about 3 weeks. Then I was sent to another camp, camp number 7, which is in the city called Landsberg am Lech, about 50 kilometers from Dachau. And that was a small camp, only about 150 people. But we were a small group. We were in the camps already over 4 years when we came there. So we had the privilege of getting the better jobs in the camp.
Yeah.
And that was the only camp I was where with women were in the same camp, but they were blocked off by wire fence about 1/4 of the camp. And we went to work together. So friends of mine got some jobs. They work in the kitchen. Some were the police in the camp and some other little job. And I got a group of 10 people where we were 5 girls and 5 boys. And we're working right outside the camp in the kitchen for the German guards. And I was 2 men in charge of the kitchen. There were 2 older men. They weren't the regular army. They were a OD uniform with the swastika armband. But they were very nice and they were very good to me. Because I was working there, and every day I was going back to the camp. I took some food back from my friends, and then we always had some soup left over. So we had big milk cans. I put in a milk can, and the next morning, people were going to work. They had to pass by our kitchen, so I used to stop them and give them some food. A couple of times, the officer in charge of the guard complained to my people that I'm holding up the people going to work. So they used to tell me, don't worry about it, let them talk. You do what you're doing. And that lasted for a while. Actually lasted until April 28, 1945. all the 12 sub-camps, we had to go back to Dachau. So came back to Dachau, stayed overnight, and the next morning we were going what they called a dead march. They're supposed to take us into the mountains in Germany. There's a place called Garmisch-Partenkirchen, ski resort in the mountain there, and that's supposed to kill us there. But we walked for 2 days, and we knew that we're not going to be walking too far because we can hear the fighting going on. We knew what the American troops are not far behind us. So we walked for 2 days and crossed a little bridge, and that little bridge was blown up. So the group was divided in 2 parts. I was on the part where we were in a village named Königsdorf, and there was a little forest in the village. So they took us to the forest and asked for volunteers to take the sick people in to the farm, to the village, to the farmers, and put them into the barns, the farmer, and told the volunteers to come back. So the volunteers to come back. One was a friend of mine, and on the way back, they found a dead horse in the snow. So they cut up some pieces from the horse. And my friend comes back and gives me a big piece of horse meat. And he said, do something. So we were in the forest, we had wood, so I made a fire and I was barbecuing. Believe me, that was the best meal we had in a long time. And during the night, the guards disappeared. So the next morning, the German police came and they took us into the village and they disappeared. It was in the morning, about between 8 and 9 o'clock. And so we just walked around the village until about between 12 and 1 o'clock, an American tank moved in. We were liberated. When the American tank moved in, believe it or not, that's the only thing I saw. I know there were troops behind them because the troops came and they blocked off the village, didn't want anybody to get out. But we were a group, we were 9 of us. We were in the camps over 5 years already. We didn't want to get blocked in. So we broke through and started to walk to see where the next town is. So we walked for about 1 or 2 kilometers and we came to a German bakery. So we got in the bakery and everybody got a bread. You were a bread, you were okay. And we start to walk and it comes to a town named Bad Tölz, about 40 kilometers from Munich. And we see 3 American soldiers, but they were Czechoslovakian descent. They were so drunk, they couldn't walk. They were holding on to each other. But I guess they saw us, the clothes we were wearing, or whatever. They recognized, so, are you Polish? I said, yes. So they said, come on. And they took us to an underground bunker, which was a warehouse. So big, you couldn't see the end of it. And anything you can think of probably was in that bunker. So we got in there and changed clothes first. Everybody took a backpack and put some food in. And there was a big row of bicycles chained up. They broke the chains and everybody got a bicycle. Now we have to find a place to stay. Because when the American troops came into the village, they brought all the people into that city. It used to be a German Air Force base. They made a DP camp, a displaced person camp. But we were over 5 years the camps. I didn't want to get to the camp. So And then we're trying to go out the street. You couldn't get out because it was after 6 o'clock, and 6 o'clock was curfew. So we hopped over about 3 or 4 fences, and we came to a German inn. And in back of the inn was an empty house. So we took over the house, and we stayed in that house. So I lived in the house, but after about 10 days, they came with an order, anybody who lives outside the camp has to move into the camp. So we moved into the camp, and we were taken back to another DP camp to Munich. We went to Munich, but you were free. You wanted, you could live in the camp, or you can go any place you wanted. You were free. So I lived in the camp for about 3 days. And there's some friends of mine and we decided to go back to the city of Landsberg, where we were the last camp. And Landsberg was one of the biggest DP camps in Germany. So actually we didn't want to live in the camp, but we went to the camp to register. They gave us a room, and I stayed overnight. And the next morning I moved out. The reason we went to the camp to register, because there was a lot of camps, and everybody was going to the camp to check the list if any of your family survived. So we registered, stayed overnight. The next morning, I moved out about 7 kilometers to a village, and I lived in a farmhouse. I stayed in a farmhouse about 6 weeks, and I decided to go back to Poland, to my hometown, to find out if any of my family survived.
Had they?
No. So actually, no, when I left the Warsaw Ghetto, I got out. I left my parents and 2 sisters and 1 brother. I left in the Warsaw Ghetto. And the 1 sister and my young brother who came out with me from the ghetto back home. And then when I went to the camp, and a short time after this, they were taken to get to a Lodz ghetto, the Lodz ghetto. So I only know as I got 1 letter from my sister when I was in the camps already, that she was working at the post office. So I got 1 letter from her that they took my young brother, he was 12 years old. And at that time, they took him, and they didn't have the gas chambers yet. They were gassing people on trucks. They were running trucks on wood, and they put the fumes inside.
Kelmno in Poland, or Kulmhof in Poland, was one of the first gas trucks. They bring people to a castle in Kulmhof, and they tell them to go in and shower. But of course, they were actually going into the back of a truck, and then they were gassed on the truck and brought to mass graves. And from there, then they started.
They took them actually, took them to a camp named Chemlo.
Chemlo, yeah.
Chemlo.
Yeah, or
That's what it took. So that's the only thing I know about what happened to him. The sister, I don't know, never know, find out. I never know what happened to my parents, the rest of the siblings. I worked with the American Red Cross here for about 2 months, giving them information. Oh, the names and the information, everything. They couldn't find anything. So the rest, I don't know anything what happened to my rest of the family. So they took him to Chelmno. That's the only thing I know. And so, and then I went back to Munich, and I went back to Landsberg, and then I went back to Poland, and went to Poland to my house, and there were some survivors living in my house. On the 2nd floor and the 1st floor were Polish people, and they said nobody my immediate family came back. Only one came back was a cousin of mine. He was a year younger than I. And actually we were before we came to Auschwitz, we were in one camp together. And when I was told to go to the left, Dr. Mengler picked me out to the left, and he was with two of his uncles, his father's brothers, that cousin. And that's when we were separated. So he survived, they said, but he was in a different town. And at that time, in Poland, was very bad for survivors who came back. They were killing a lot of the survivors in Poland because when they took the Jews out from the houses, and they moved in to the houses, and now the survivors came back. They didn't want to give up the house, so they killed a lot of them in one town named Kielce. They killed 42 survivors in one town. So it was very bad. So I said, I was going. My cousin survived a different town. He was in a different town. So I said, I'm going to get him, and we're going back to Germany. Because that was the safest place you could be at the time in Germany. And we got him, and he went back to Germany. And I lived in Germany 4 more years after I was liberated, because there was no place, you didn't have a passport, there's no place you could go until any country opens up. So after 4 years, they said Canada opened, and they'll take you in. So I went to register to go to Canada. Then you have to wait until they call you. Took a long time, you didn't hear from them. And then in the meantime, a friend lived in the next village, came, told me, said, Joe, you can go now to Munich, and they registered to go to America. So I went to Munich, and we registered to go to America. And a very short time, I got a notice you had to go through the American doctor to check you out. And you went through the FBI to check you out, check your record out. And you got a note shortly after this to go to Bremerhaven in Germany. That's a port to get the boat to go to America. So I went.
How long did it take you? The journey would have been probably about 2 weeks by boat.
By boat, 10 days.
10 days, yeah. It was a long.
Yeah, I went there, got the boat, and came to America. I came to America in May 30th, 1949. And I arrived in New York. I arrived in New York. And, you know, everybody who came had to have a sponsor.
Yeah.
Either you had some relatives here or a organization. I was sponsored I didn't have any relatives, I was sponsored by a Jewish organization named Joint. And so my contract was to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Harrisburg.
So I went to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I lived there for about 6 months, because I came in May and my cousin came in October. He had an uncle here in Santa Monica. So he came in October, he came to Santa Monica, and he told the uncle that I'm in Pennsylvania because we were the only 2 survivors from both of our families. So that uncle called me a few times, I should come to here so we can be together again. So in 1950, I came to California, and here, I'm still here.
You're still there.
But let me tell you, I forgot to tell you, when I I've been in Auschwitz, in Birkenau. I saw people running to the electric fence to get electrocuted. I saw people being beaten to death. It was very, very bad. So I just tried to get out of there.
A friend,
And I also over the years, I had to witness 3 hangings at different camps because people trying to escape and they got cut. So on a Sundays, we had to gather around to watch them being hung. So it was.
It's very difficult to imagine the level of brutality. I don't think even people like yourself who have been through it can comprehend the barbarity that was that you were subjected to. It's very, very difficult for me. I mean, I did my doctorate on childhood under Nazism, and I've been, I suppose, for over a decade, well over a decade, totally consumed with listening to stories of the Holocaust and listening and writing about it and researching and lecturing on it. And it's become what I've called, I suppose, a magnificent obsession. But everybody, to the last detail, every survivor of the Holocaust say the same thing. You know, they all have different story. You all have different experiences. But at the heart of it, what's the same for all of you is the level of barbarity that you were exposed to. I mean, what would possess a human being to treat another living being, another human being, as if they were not human? And that's the way you were treated, as if you weren't human. That's the way the Nazis saw anybody that was not Aryan or not their view of Aryan.
Yeah, you know, they murdered 6 million Jews. They didn't kill them because they were the robbers, the killers. I mean, any criminals. They were criminals or anything that did anything wrong only because they were Jews.
Mm.
And they took away from me. They took away my house, took away my family, and took away my name because they gave me this number here. That was my name. That's the only thing they did. They gave me this. This was my name.
They reduced people to numbers. And Auschwitz, I'm right in saying that Auschwitz was the only camp where you had the number tattooed?
Yeah, that's the only camp.
Yeah, the only camp. And
tattoo, I have a different number in Dachau. I got a different number, but not a tattoo.
Not a tattoo, yeah.
I had a number on my uniform. I was wearing the uniform.
I interviewed not long ago Michael Metelets, who he's in the United States as well, and he was in Auschwitz-Birkenau, and he had his tattoo. And Michael, unlike you, doesn't really want to talk about it. His daughter is profoundly affected by her dad's experiences. Mm. And it just goes to prove that level of horror that was done to you and to people like you doesn't just end when the war ends. Your families are affected by it as well. Your relationships in many cases with your wives and your husbands and children can be affected by what you experienced yourself. You went on to have, I presume, a very happy life in the United States. And
yes,
you're the family. I'm going to put up some of your photographs here now, and we can go through them. That's your father, isn't it? And
yes,
that's
my father, and she was my older sister.
And she was in the camp with you, was she?
No,
No?
no, I left her in the Warsaw Ghetto.
Yeah, in the ghetto. And
Yeah.
you never heard anything about her after that?
No.
Or your dad? It's just simply, it's just unbelievable, Joseph. It really is.
This is a picture taken, that's in the farmhouse where I lived, on the farm. I lived there on the second floor, and the man on the left, you see the tall guy,
Yeah.
that was the friend of mine. His name was Joe Buddha. He is the one who brought the horse meat.
Okay.
And the other on the right, that's my cousin.
And that's you in the middle.
Yes.
You haven't changed at all, Joseph. You haven't changed at all.
Well, that's the same to the three of us.
Yeah, they're lovely photos to actually have. These were the concentration camps in Poland, and these were all the camps that you were sent to.
Yeah.
Kapinos, Poznan, Eichenwald, Steineck,
Yeah.
Rimau, Port Radzivil, Kreising. You were also in Auschwitz-Birkenau.
You have all the camps. One of the articles I had in the Los Angeles Jewish Journal, I had in 1915. I had an article in a Jewish journal there, and which has my picture on it, and then it has spelled out all the names of the camps, every camp I was.
Wow. I mean, when you look at it, the whole of Poland, Czechoslovakia, Germany, Belgium, all just
I think they said there were about 2,000 camps.
Littered with camps. And people make the mistake of thinking of the Bergen-Belsen. Tommy Reichenthal, a friend of mine, he survived. He was a child survivor of Bergen-Belsen, and he said to me that he remembers the bodies all piled high, and when he was playing, one of the interviews I did of him, I called it "Playing Among the Corpses," because he used to play among the midden piles of dead bodies, and he thought nothing of it because they were children, and they were so used to walking out in Belsen and seeing all the dead bodies. It's amazing what you get used to when you have no other way of judging things, when all you ever see are dead bodies.
Yeah, I used to see him every day. They were taking out dead bodies every day. Every camp I was.
But Joseph, that has to leave an impact on you that will never go away. Something like that is, I don't know, would you ever forget? Is that the reason you find it so important to talk about your experiences? Did you always talk about your experiences, or did you only start talking about them in later life?
Well, that's why I've talked to tens of thousands of students, high school kids, to let them know what I went through and what happened. So this is what we have to do. There's only a few of us left, and not too many survivors left. So that's what we do, and talk to all the kids and let them know what happened.
It's a scary.
That's all we can do now.
It's scary, Joseph, to look at that map, and that's only a percentage of Europe.
Yes.
There, it's East Prussia, Germany, Belgium, Hungary, and Poland, and Czechoslovakia, and it's completely littered with camps.
That's right.
Okay, we've heard of Theresienstadt and Buchenwald and Dachau and Auschwitz, Birkenau, Krakow, and places like that, and Sobibor and Majdanek.
Yeah.
But lesser camps that nobody would have, of course, I'd have heard of Neuengamme, Sachsenhausen. But my God, it's just littered with horror names, horror camps. And and then there's this one here, Joseph.
Yeah. This is that's why when I speak to these high schools, the kids, I tell them, I show them, because I tell them, you know, there's a lot of Holocaust deniers. I said, don't listen what the Holocaust deniers tell you, that the Holocaust never happened.
Yeah.
I said that I call them, they're stupid, they're crazy, because the evidence is still in existence today. You go to any of these camps, Dachau, Majdanek, Treblinka, Auschwitz, Buchenwald, any of those camps, the ovens, the gas chambers in the ovens are still in existence, and you have thousands of people going there daily. I went to back to some of them, and I see thousands of people with buses from people from all over the world coming to see. So that's why I say, don't listen what they tell you, because they see the evidence is still in existence.
Do you worry, Joseph, that people, I know I experience it all the time, people saying to me, why are you studying the Holocaust, and why are you so taken with the Holocaust? It happened 70 odd years ago. And but I believe that it's so important to remember the Holocaust and the experiences, because we're only a hair's breadth away from it happening again, and this time to another, to different people. If we stand by, it's like the Martin Niemöller. First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist.
That's right.
It came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. You know, if you don't speak for the people who suffered during the Holocaust, it's only 70 something years ago. It ended in 1949. So it's only, you know, it's not so long ago. It can happen again if we don't learn from it. Are you worried that it's not in every school compulsory? Do you think it should become compulsory? I do.
Yes, it should be. It should be every school in every country. They should be compulsory to teach the Holocaust.
That's your driver's license from Germany.
That's my driver's license from Germany, and it's a no expiration date.
Oh, that's fabulous.
It's a lifetime.
So you can drive I heard you got your new license recently in America.
Yes, yes.
That's fantastic.
That's my liberation shows here from Auschwitz, and we see my number on it.
Yeah, 142584.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, you got. This is from liberation from Dachau.
Yeah.
Dachau. Wow. This is the one there, and you see there's the front and the back. The reason you see the back of this here, because, you know, we were going from camp to camps to see if you find some relatives in Germany. So, and at that time, they didn't have stores you can go buy food, because everything was on stamps, you know. So we used to go to the Bürgermeister, you know, the mayor of a village or a city, to get some, we can get some stamps. So every time they had to stamp on the bottom of this Dachau liberation paper, on the bottom, on the back, they had to stamp, and they gave us some stamps,
Yeah.
food stamps.
They're in great condition.
And
That's
here is
it.
one that shows you, and this one here, this is the one from Munich liberation. And on this one here, it shows you I was in the camp from 1939 to May 2nd, 1945.
Yeah. Wow. Angela.
Here is a picture in 1915. I was invited, 1950, I was invited by the government of Germany to come to Dachau to celebrate 70 years the liberation of Dachau. And that's when I met Angela Merkel in Dachau.
In 2015.
Yeah, I spoke to her in Dachau.
In 2015. Yeah.
Yes.
That's your Adele, is that your wife?
Yeah, that was my wife.
Your late wife. Lovely photo. And that's Riva.
That's Riva and me.
Riva's lurking in there in the background. Hello, Riva.
Hello, hello.
And that's Riva. And
Yeah.
and that's your
That's
daughter, your daughter and son.
My daughter and my son.
And that's
my
your son-in-law daughter.
That's my daughter and my husband.
Yeah. And your grandson, Alexander.
That's my grandson. Yeah.
Is he Alexander, or is he what's his surname? No, his surname would be different.
Who? What?
Your grandson's surname.
My grandson's name is Alexander also.
But what's his other?
His son, that's my son's son.
Son. Yeah, lovely. Fabulous. And there are your documents on display in the Holocaust.
Yeah, that's in the Holocaust Museum in Los Angeles Holocaust Museum. There's a glass case in one of the aisles, and they have my original documents is there on display in there.
That's fantastic. It's fantastic to have, and that's you showing your tattoo.
Yeah.
Do you know Joseph? And that's you. That's you speaking with students.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I speak to the children.
That's your article in the Times in 2019.
That was a Los Angeles Times newspaper.
Yeah.
And it was taken. It was at the museum, but before I was speaking to a class, they took this picture.
Very famous.
This is how we live. That's the way we live. See, one section was for 3 people. There's a bunch, just shelves, like, you know.
Yeah.
And on the second row, way at the end there, on the bottom, that's a Elie Wiesel.
Yeah, I know that it's the actual the
more,
man.
More to the right, more to the right.
Yeah, you can barely see him behind the
right
rung.
here.
The rung. That's Elie Wiesel. Hard to visualize Elie Wiesel, you can still see his features, but they were so emaciated and so thin that's what's got me through. Is I never gave up. I never lost hope. I always said, I may have a bad day today, but tomorrow will be a better day. There are a lot of deniers out there that say this never happened. Do not believe what they tell you. I am living proof that this did happen. There are too many of us left. If we do not talk about the Holocaust and we are all gone, there will be no one to tell our stories. How scary do you think it is, Joseph, that there are still so many Holocaust deniers?
Well, there's always going to be somebody, you know, in any some different organizations, or some people, they want to have some leaders, and they want to have some people to follow them or something. So they have to come up with some gimmick sometimes, you know, just so there's some Holocaust denier. So what about the people who got killed, like in Pittsburgh at the synagogue, or in San Diego, or like here in Los Angeles in the Orange County, where they had those the students, where they had those red cups signed made up as the swastika.
Right, they all came out. Yeah. But Joseph, I mean, can you see, like, sadly, I can see the rise of anti-Semitism, and it's. I know it's scaring a lot of Holocaust survivors whom I know. A friend of mine whom I interviewed a while back, she received a British Empire Medal from the Queen for her services to Holocaust education, Dorrit Oliver Wolf. She's coming back on the show with me. She sent me a text and asked, could she come on again? Because she wants to talk about the fear that Holocaust survivors have of what they see as the rise of anti-Semitism again in the world. Do you think that, given that this rise that many can see of anti-Semitism, that it's more important now than ever to teach Holocaust education?
Yes.
Because it's just we're kicking the ball into the distance and saying that happened years ago, forget about it, live in the present. But if we're going to keep repeating the same mistakes again, it may not always be the Jew who's the victim. There could be somebody else. But again, it's the Martin Niemöller quote: if you don't pay attention and stand up for what happened then, how can you stand up for the people that it's happening to now? We have to learn from our mistakes if we can.
No, we have to. That's why we have to speak any place we can, anywhere. Matter of fact, in Riva, we were in Italy in 2015 when we went to Dachau. We went to Italy then, and I spoke in Italy to a Jewish school in Rome. And then I also spoke to one in Florence, in Italy.
Florence is beautiful, isn't it?
So any place, anywhere. And I had several speeches I made here in Los Angeles, but they went to, I don't know how many countries, but I got from emails from people, from a friend of ours in London, that they saw me in London, they saw me in Germany, and they also saw me in Israel. I have a cousin in Israel, and they said they saw me there speak. So I don't know how many other countries which I didn't hear from, but I don't know where. Yeah.
Well, Joseph Alexander, it's been an absolute joy and an honor, absolutely a privilege to have listened to your story today. It's one of courage and it's one of determination and it's one of survival, because your children, your relationship with Riva, they're all stand as I suppose as proof that you have beaten evil. You have gone on and you have reared a lovely family, and you have a lovely life, and just despite efforts to actually destroy you, you have come out on top in the long run. Do you feel in any way that
Yeah. Well, I had this week the mayor of Los Angeles put out a post on his Instagram showed like a 98-year-old survivor got the vaccination.
Did you? You got your back. You got your jabs, as they like to call them. I haven't got mine yet. I'm nervous about getting it. Yeah, every time I've ever got the flu vaccine, I've ended up in a hospital on a drip because I have asthma. So yeah, so I'm careful. I'm very, very scared of having the vaccine. But Joseph,
well, we waited. Actually, even I waited a long time too. We wanted to get more data on it until we decided just a couple weeks ago. So we got the Johnson.
You got Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm just like, I'm not afraid of needles. I'm just reluctant to take it in case I start barking or something.
Oh, that's all right. Just wait. Just be careful. That's all.
I might start barking.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you, Joseph, and thank you, Riva, for being so good at producing Joseph on the other side.
He really needs no help at all, as you can see, and it's been just a lovely interview, and you are very charming, and
yes,
and we're only too happy, and we hope our paths cross again soon in the future.
I do sincerely hope so. It's been it's been historic, and it's been a pleasure. And thank you both very much.
And thank you.
Shalom. Shindera Leshan Clor. That's the end of the show for today. Until the same time, or until the next time, Lacunav Day. But Walam Tugalir Chiacona, Sonus August Gro, I wish you peace, happiness, and love. August Gaday Shiv Slom. Shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you, Salam.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Auschwitz is to the world a symbol of terror, genocide, and the Holocaust. It was established by the German Nazis in 1940 in the suburbs of the city of Oświęcim, which, like other Polish territories, was occupied by the Third Reich during World War II. The city's name was changed to Auschwitz, which also became the name of the camp. In the following years, the camp was expanded and consisted of three main parts: Auschwitz I, Auschwitz II Birkenau, and Auschwitz III Monowitz, and about 50 subcamps.
Initially, the prisoners and victims of the camp were Poles. Later, Soviet prisoners of war, the Roma, and the people of different nationalities were imprisoned here. From 1942, the camp became a site of the largest mass murder in the history of humankind, which was perpetrated on European Jews within the plan of complete extermination of this nation.
The majority of the Jews deported to Auschwitz, men, women, and children, were sent to death in the Birkenau gas chambers immediately upon arrival. In total, the Germans murdered approximately 1.1 million people in Auschwitz, mostly Jews, as well as Poles, the Roma, Soviet prisoners of war, and representatives of other nationalities and minorities. In an attempt to cover the traces of their crimes after the war, the SS men burned documents, demolished and destroyed the gas chambers and crematoria, as well as other facilities. Prisoners who were capable of marching were evacuated deep into the Reich. Those who remained in the camp were liberated by soldiers of the Red Army on 27th of January 1945. Following a law passed by the Polish Parliament on 2nd of July 1947, a museum was established on the area of two surviving parts of the camp, Auschwitz I and Auschwitz II-Birkenau. In 1979, the site was included in the UNESCO World Heritage List. The contemporary memorial includes, among others, the collections, archives, as well as the research, conservation, and publishing centers. It is also an educational space, which the main focus is to reflect on the history of Auschwitz in the context of contemporary challenges, threats, and our moral responsibility.